Hey everybody, it's Mikhail, and I'm about to give my opinion on the results of the running events of the World Championships. Now, this video I am going to go over the male results. I will do the female results in a separate video, and I will put a link in the description of these running events, as well as my overall thoughts and opinions on these World Championships. So let's start. 100 meters. As you can see, Justin Gatlin got the gold, Christian Coleman got the silver, and Usain Bolt got the bronze. Now, in Bolt's final race ended in a disaster. So now if you watched the race, you could have noticed that Coleman had a blazing start, had a great reaction time, and basically led most of the race. Bolt, on the other hand, had a terrible start. Due to his height and stature, he's gonna have a terrible start. There's no doubt in my mind his reaction time is going to be poor. But out of all the major championship finals I've seen, this was the worst I've seen from Bolt. And as you can see, Gatlin was completely out of the race the first 70 meters, and as the finish came up, he started closing in and caught up to Coleman. So once again, this is another upset. I did think that Bolt should have won, and if you notice in the video, at the end of the race, Bolt was closing in on both Coleman and Gatlin, so if it was an extra 5 meters, Bolt would have won. But unfortunately, that did not happen, and he lost. So this was already the first major upset of the championships. So let's continue. 200 meters. Ramil Guliev of Turkey, Wade van Niekerk of South Africa, and Jareem Richards of Trinidad and Tobago. So now, Van Niekerk, due to the absences of so many athletes like DeGrasse, Coleman, we can go down a long list of people who dropped out of the race. This was basically an open field. Wade van Niekerk was the 400 meter world champion, and he did, if you notice, I will discuss his race. He had to run 6 races in 6 consecutive days. So that's really tough, especially with the 400, running a 400. For all you track fans, the 400 is most likely the toughest event in the whole track and field, period. So it's not easy to be running 3 rounds of a 400, then turn around and have to run 3 rounds of the 200 in 6 consecutive days. So the double was tough, but it was in Van Niekerk's reach, in my opinion. Breaking down the race, once you see in the description, Van Niekerk had an amazing start. He had a fantastic start. When he was entering the home stretch, he was in the lead for about maybe like 50, 60 meters to go, and then, as you know, Ramil Guliev of Turkey started closing in on him, and the fatigue settled in for Van Niekerk very late in the race. As you can see, that 400, running all those 400s really took a toll on him, and which caused him to lose and get second. And as you notice, Jareem Richards of Trinidad and Tobago was also closing in on Van Niekerk. Unfortunately, Van Niekerk had a faster time in like milliseconds or something, way beyond milliseconds, to edge out Richards from the bronze. Now I feel like Richards, he's very not talked about a lot. This is his first, I've never heard of him before, period, but watching him run in the rounds, he looks like he's going to be a future athlete to watch in these sprints for years to come. So the future's pretty bright for Richards. As for Van Niekerk, I feel like the next World Championships, now that he knows, he understands the environment, how it feels to attempt 2 major events, 2 major races in span of a few days, I think he will be a contender once again in the 2019 World Championships. As for Ramil Guliev, I do not see him winning in the future. I do not see him winning in the next World Championships. I think that was a fluke, and once again, there was a lot of notable absences, as well as there's actually a couple of sprinters that I did not mention, such as Noah Lyles, 19-year-old from America. Unfortunately, he was injured prior to these World Championships, so he didn't qualify for the team. As well as I mentioned, Coleman, DeGrasse were all out in these championships due to injury. Now let's discuss the 400. Now, there is no doubt in my mind Van Niekerk was going to win. He has the world record. There was actually talks about him actually going sub 43 in these championships, but due to the cold weather and basically him attempting the double, it was really unlikely. So if you watch the race, you notice basically the home stretch, he basically took a commanding lead into the home stretch, started really sprinting that first maybe 50-60 meters of the home stretch and just pulled up at the end. Looked around, had no competition, so he did a bull. So, I mean, I wasn't really surprised by the results. I was kind of upset that Makwala of Botswana was not competing, because I feel like he challenged Van Niekerk in a couple Diamond League races. That would have been very interesting to see them head-to-head. I know the time would have been way faster than 43.98, so it's very disappointing not to see Makwala in the race. So unfortunately, Van Niekerk, this was a walk in the park for Van Niekerk. Stephen Gardiner of the Bahamas actually is very interesting. He did set a national record in the semis. I've noticed him. He is another future star in the 400. You know, the Bahamas have a history of 400-meter runners who have been very successful in the past. I feel like he is going to be the next one. He's passing the torch. They're going to pass the torch to him, and he will excel in this race for years. But he is not quite on Van Niekerk's level. And third place medalist Haroon, I never really heard about him. I did see him close at the end to get the bronze medal, so kudos to him. Hopefully, not sure the next World Championships he will medal, most likely not. I do feel like Van Niekerk will be a favorite again 2 years from now, and he will definitely, at that time, I'm hoping, and I'm pretty confident that he'll be at sub 43 by the next World Championships. Fred Curley, in my opinion, the U.S. once again did choke. I guess the effects of having a extended track and field season took a toll on him, and he fell apart probably since the semis. So, and that really sucks because he had the fastest time in the world, but unfortunately, we already know the situations with performing under pressure. Next, the 800 meters. Now, with the absence of David Rudisha due to injury, and then Poirier, the world leader, didn't making out of the semifinals. This was an open field. In my opinion, I felt like almost should have won. You know, he had the second fastest time in the world, and he had the fastest time in the field. But breaking down his race, he was getting boxed in a lot. Just a very sloppy run. Didn't really get in his rhythm. And it just really affected him, mentally affected him early in the race, and it just didn't respond on the last lap. Now, Boss, which I was very surprised, he was sort of an unknown person, an unknown winner or contender in this race. He ran a very tactical 800, normally how an 800 is supposed to be ran. He started moving up on the back stretch, and then he started kicking it in that final 200. And as a result, he did get the win. Kajat, another tactical 800 runner, did start off from behind, closed in the final 100 to get the silver medal. I felt like if he was closer in the beginning of the race, he probably would have edged out Boss for the gold medal, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And then Bet, who was really got in that tangle with almost beginning of the race, did get the third place medal. Once again, this was Donovan Brazier, 143 800 runner, was not in this race, also out eliminated in the semifinals. So this was an open field. I felt like it all came down to who had the best cake, in my opinion, who ran their race, and as a result, Boss was the winner of that. So that's that. 1500 meters. This event was I knew especially that Centrowitz, that Olympic gold medal was a fluke. I am not surprised that he didn't medal. Well, he was suffering from injuries early in the season, and I think he did have another injury late prior to the championships, but there was no way that he was going to win. I mean, that time was completely slow, and if you watch the Rio Olympics, you notice that it was very tactical. There was a lot of trips, falls, and nobody really decided to make a move, and that's why Centrowitz won. He took advantage, and he basically gave all that he had on the last lap, and for some reason he ended up with the victory. But unfortunately, it did not happen this time. So Elijah Mangoy, Timothy Chariot were the heavily favorites. They did have the top 2 fastest times in the world, so they did place how they were supposed to. It sucks. Asbel Kiprop was keeping up with them early in the race, but I don't think his fitness is where it was 2 years ago when he did win the gold medal. So he fell off a pace the final lap and really caused an opening for some of those other athletes to come in. And as you can see, Flip Ingebrigtsen of Norway got the bronze. But so far this race, other than Van Niekerk's race, these were the top 2 medalists. These were the top 2 athletes who were supposed to come in with the win. Didn't disappoint. 5,000 meters. Now, I didn't see the entire race, only saw the closing meters, and I was very surprised that Mo Farah lost, because actually I am surprised and I'm not surprised. One of the reasons is because Mo Farah has been dominating the 5 and 10K for about 2011, so like 6 years now. So the East Africans, they basically plotted a plan for many years to try to challenge him, find a way to defeat him, and it never really paid off, because Mo Farah is just, with someone with his stamina and foot speed, it's really rare for him not to lose in a long distance event such as the 5 and 10K. I mean, normally you will see distance runners don't really have foot speed, or the distance runners who do have foot speed don't have the same endurance and stamina as some of these other athletes. So Mo Farah has the whole package. So as a result, he is one of the main factors, main favorites in these events, in these championships. And I saw him really fighting on that home stretch. I don't know if he was injured or not, or the East Africans really paid off. It was really disappointing since it was his final race of his track and field career, and especially that he was in his home country. But unfortunately, that just, once again, the East Africans finally managed to defeat him. Chalimo, in my opinion, he is another very talented athlete from the U.S. He was Kenyan born, and he did surprise a lot of people last year by winning the silver medal in the Olympics. In my opinion, I felt like he was going to challenge Mo Farah and for the top 2 spots, but unfortunately he did get 3rd. It was a foot race, but he could not match the speed of Mo Farah, so he ended up getting the bronze. 10K. Now, the 10K was a very interesting race. This was actually the first time I actually seen Mo Farah actually have major competition. He slipped a couple times, fell off the track. They were boxing him in. The East Africans really gave it to Mo Farah in that race. And, as a time, you could see the time was quick. Usually Mo Farah wins these 10Ks in like 27:30s. This was a 26:49 victory, so it wasn't easy for Mo Farah. The East Africans really plotted a plan, and it almost worked. Unfortunately, Mo Farah's foot speed, which these other East Africans didn't have, paid off, and he was able to outkick him in the home stretch. But this was, once again, this was a beginning of this was a beginning of what was to come in the future on how to defeat some of these athletes with foot speed. I felt like they pushed the pace early in the race, caused Mo Farah to respond, which he did, and once again, Even though it was a long race, it was a fast